Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar here with Kapil Nathan and Jitesh Ramakrishnan. So the reason I'm wearing my Giants Eli Manning jersey is because Marquez
Because you don't
Valdez-Scantling,
have any taste.
because MVS dropped the ball. I was gonna wear my Pacheco shirt and troll the Eagles, which I really wanted to do, and they ruined it, and I'm very upset. But I had to troll someone, so I'm trolling you guys because the Giants are playing the Patriots next week, so I'm wearing the Patriots owner Eli Manning's jersey, so I still get my
Uh,
fun in, I
uh,
guess. But
um, really, you ought to be thinking like the pinstripes that helped you out with those two unfaithful so-called Super Bowls. But we could discuss that afterwards. Let's
anyway,
progress to
we'll
this
we'll
week.
we'll get to that. We'll probably cover Giants Patriots after the week after it happens, but a lot of games to get to in the NFL Week 11 slate. We'll also be talking some cricket, maybe some college football, all the stuff that's happened in the busy week of sports, like always.
Well,
So
Let's go and talk college football because they just released their rankings. So
yeah, exactly
after
that.
the unfortunate injury to Jordan Travis, we're
I
seeing
know.
Florida State and Washington switch up. I think this was deserved. Washington, I
Me
think they should
too.
be here probably 2, 3 weeks ago. But I'm really excited to see how these next 2, 3 weeks plays out. Um, you know,
Yeah. Mhm.
as of right now, I think the loser of the game is not going to make the playoff, and I think it's
Probably not.
unless a lot of
Yeah.
upsets happen, it's really unlikely that the loser is going to be win in. Another thing, the Pac-12 championship, if that's a rematch, I don't think the loser gets in there either.
Right.
Because Washington and Oregon have been what 5-6 or 4-6. Um, I think that's there. I think you also can't count out the winner of the SEC championship
Hmm.
because well, yeah, Bama's at 8. Um, but you can't really ignore the resume of a one-loss SEC champion. Um, so if Bama loses, then obviously they're going to be out. But if they win, they could very well get excluded.
Like,
So
yeah,
that would be
that's
an
true.
unfortunate, occurrence. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. If Texas doesn't lose, I think they're in. I think they'll have the resume. So yeah, I think So there's going to be 3 spots that are guaranteed right now. I think Pac-12 championship, the winner of the game, and winner of the
Hmm.
SEC championship. Those are going to be your first 3 spots, and then the fourth spot is going to be filled by I guess the best remaining team, which might be Texas in that case.
Could be.
They did lose. They lost Jonathan Brooks last week. They're a really good running back. So but I didn't. The biggest injury this week was Jordan Travis,
I know.
and
Yeah.
was
I kind of
unfortunate.
agree. I mean,
So
like, yeah.
the biggest games. Obviously, you have the game
Mm,
in Auburn, which is gonna be huge.
gonna be
Then you have
huge.
you have the Iron Bowl. Auburn obviously isn't ranked right now, but I'm gonna go to that game, and Alabama seems to always choke in that stadium. Hopefully, it
Yeah, Auburn
doesn't.
just lost to New Mexico State pretty
Yes,
badly, so it's gonna
and
be
it wasn't.
interesting.
Yeah, it was. They got dominated. So
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't close either. Yeah.
I think Oregon versus Oregon State, that's going to be a matchup that you need to pay attention to as well.
Right, right.
If Oregon State keeps it close or if they win, Oregon's obviously going to be out of contention. So, there's a lot of storylines over these next 2 weeks. So, if
Yeah.
I guess the biggest storylines is can Texas, you know, win out? Can, the Pac-12 championship, determine a playoff spot?
Right.
What happens to the loser of the game if a certain scenario happens, and then
Yeah.
who wins the SEC championship,
I
and
know.
the
Yeah,
loser
that's
of
gonna
that
be
will
good.
actually be eliminated. Because man, if Georgia loses that game, there's going to be a lot of questions going forward.
I know. It's gonna be interesting with Texas
Yeah.
having the tiebreaker over Alabama and then Alabama having it over
Texas,
Georgia. I
Texas
mean,
barely,
yeah,
yeah, Texas, but like sure the score might not have indicated how close it was, but they only won by 3 points against TCU, which isn't ranked. They're
sure.
not having a good year this year, so I think that's worth paying attention to. Georgia dominated Tennessee in Neyland, so granted they should have been first. I think they should have been first from the beginning. Michigan,
Mhm.
struggled, but not so much against Maryland. I think it wasn't, they were on upset alert either. Then Ohio State just,
Ohio State's rolling. They're
Ohio
rolling.
State's rolling, but That's
an
going to be
easier
really interesting.
competition,
Why
I
don't we
guess.
get
Yeah.
the picks for the game? And
Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
I'm going to take Michigan just because, I think they're a little bit more proven. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're playing at home, and I don't think they've lost a home game these past 2 seasons. So, I
If
mean,
not,
like,
yeah.
I don't know when the last time they lost at home was. So that's pretty impressive. I'm going to take Michigan in the game this weekend. Arnav?
Gonna go with Ohio State. I don't know. It might be because I like them more, but it's also I think there's blood in the water. Michigan struggled against Maryland, which I was not expecting, and Ohio State's just been steamrolling. Plus, like just like Michigan's playing with a chip on their shoulder, so is Ohio State. The whole cheating controversy, and obviously Ohio State wants to get revenge for the last 2 years. I think they're well equipped to do it, but if Michigan does win, though, I really wouldn't be surprised. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think either team can come up with it. Obviously, Michigan is home field, but I don't know. I'm feeling Ohio State, but I feel like it could also be dead wrong. But we'll have to see. It's a rivalry
Jitesh?
game. Yeah.
Jitesh? Jitesh? Are you still there?
Yeah. I was just muted. That's it.
Yeah. So who do you have for the winner of the game this weekend?
I don't know. I haven't really been keeping up with college football. I'll just say college football team wins.
Okay.
Sure. So let's
Worth.
so yeah, that's gonna be this is these next 12 or 13 days are really gonna change a lot given that this is the last year
Hmm.
of the 14 playoff. Obviously, it would have been a much easier if the 12-team
I
playoff or
know this would
even
have been
a
such a good year for
even
the
a
12
potential
team playoff.
17 playoff, potential 17 playoff would have been implemented
Seven
this
or
year.
eight. Yeah, maybe
So,
eight. Yeah.
mhm, interesting. So let's move on to the NFL. A lot of interesting games, but like not quite the
Right.
flair of last week, but there were some huge matchups.
Definitely
So
some huge games. So.
and a lot of big events occurring. So speaking of big events, let's go back to a Thursday night. Joe Burrow again going into Baltimore. I thought
First,
Baltimore
no, no,
was
no. First thing we need to address this week: the gluttony of injuries. Like,
yes.
what the hell has been
I
going
know.
on?
Joe Burrow, I mean, like, that's unfortunate. The Bengals are out of playoff contention now. I
Yeah.
mean, they could go for a higher draft pick
Watson
or,
and the Browns probably too.
Hmm.
yeah. So I think the Bengals right now, I mean, they probably should tank for a higher draft pick, though they won't. That's not in their nature with, with this roster. I mean,
Right.
like Jake Browning, he made the playoff one, he made the college football playoff. So there's some faith in him, but I just don't think that you can't do anything without Joe Burrow. Because I mean, like he's the centerpiece of your offense. You didn't give him $55 million a year to do nothing. So I think it's most unfortunate for the Bengals, but the Ravens also played pretty well. I mean, like despite losing Mark Andrews for the foreseeable future, um, I think that if, sure, Mark Andrews, is a big piece, but, you have all these receivers, you have 5 first round receivers on your team, kind
You
of use them. And,
you have old man Odell Beckham. You have Zay
had
Flower.
100, who had 110 yards, who had 115 yards above.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
He only does that like once. He only does that once every 5 games now. You have Zay Flowers and you have Rashad Bateman, who's still injury prone. I don't have any
And
faith in this Ravens receiving corn.
except for
Like
Zay Flowers.
no, because Mark Andrews opens up everything. Now that
Yeah.
Mark Andrews is gone, the
Mhm.
Ravens offense is gonna have to primarily rely on Lamar's running game and Gus Edwards. That's it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think, the middle. I mean, like this is like when you lose a tight end, right? The middle of the field, the game becomes a little bit more. The middle of the field game becomes less important. So you're gonna have
And the
yeah,
offense themselves will
yeah.
they could be more I don't know one dimensional. They could be.
Yeah, so you're gonna have your weapons win on the outside. With the drops problems this team has, they're going to struggle, but I don't think it'll be too much. I mean, like, I'm sure Todd Monken will adjust pretty well. So, I mean, like, is my faith in them diminished a little bit? Sure, but not enough for them to, consider, making a deep run. I mean, like, this is probably the best team other than the Chiefs in the entire conference. So I think they could definitely make the AFC Championship game if they don't run into
Hmm.
the Chiefs in the first place.
Yeah, I agree
Well,
with that. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, like
Mhm.
since he's out of commission now, the Bills suck.
Hmm.
I don't care that they demolished the Jets. They are extremely overrated, and that's not even Patriots bias factoring in. Like this Bills team has
They are.
been very hot and cold. Deshaun Watson and the Browns might not see the playoffs now because he's out with shoulder surgery. The
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars, they're still playoff contenders, but they're not Super Bowl contenders. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
probably give them, I don't know, divisional round maybe at best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah,
So yeah,
and
so let's
that's
go.
That's
realistically
about
all the
right.
Let's talk
competition.
about. So yeah, let's talk about some of these teams, right? So Steelers, Browns. This was the one game that I did not, care to watch the highlights for. And this is the game that I think Steelers fans will be celebrating for a long time because Matt
They may have
Canada
lost it.
got
My
fired.
Canada's
No,
fire.
they may have lost the game, but they won the week with Matt Canada being fired. And
Yes, and I think
I
it
saw a stat.
should have been done 2 years ago. I think they did this 2 years
No, I
late
saw something put out like apparently this is the first time the Steelers have fired a coach since 1941.
in season,
I
mid
saw
season.
that. Yeah,
In
So,
season, yeah.
it's crazy.
Props to Mike Tomlin for finally recognizing it, even if it was 2 years late.
Hmm.
Um, I think so. The Browns' defense, though, I mean, like they're the best in the league, and I
They're
don't think it's
ferocious.
either.
Yeah.
And this Browns defense has been absolutely elite from the first snap of the season until now. I mean, like they kind of should have got two safeties on Sunday for being real. So props to them. I think Miles Garrett, DPOY conversation, if not MVP right now. You know, Jim Schwartz has them playing elite ball. So yeah, speaking of
Mhm.
elite ball, let's go to the Raiders and the Dolphins. So the Raiders have had a
Oh yeah,
pretty
there's a reason I didn't mention the Dolphins as Super Bowl contenders. It's because they're allergic to beating teams above 500.
Yeah. So I
Exactly.
just want to point out the Raiders defense though was pretty good. I mean, like they've been, kind of maligned these past few, I mean, like for the past decade or so, but this defense is playing really good ball this year. I mean, like sure they're not like top 10, top 5 level, but they're playing good defense. And, but like they went into Miami, the top offense in the league, and they had 3, 4 takeaways. Props on them. Fortunately, their offense, couldn't keep Pat. Sure, it's a rookie quarterback, but yeah, they kind of could have done a little bit better with the
Yeah,
offense. I mean, like it's not.
you guys heard about the Devonta Adams rumors? Might reunite with an old
I
friend in
don't
New
think
York.
I mean, like that's a possibility, but I don't think it's gonna happen because I mean, Adam said he doesn't want it, and I mean, like I don't think it's going to be realistic because the Jets have, they have a lot of extensions and stuff coming up that they have to consider, and I don't think Devontae Adams will be able to fit under all their cap space that they're having plans for. So I think we can just shut those down. But let's talk about Miami's offense. They were kind of cold. Shout out to the Raiders defense, but Miami's defense, man, Jalen Ramsey. You know, this is going to be a top 5 unit from now on. It's
He
one of my
might
hot
be
takes.
officially back.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think this unit is going to be playing top 5 ball from now on. But like Jalen Ramsey being back is such a huge boost. And, Vic Fangio, obviously, everybody's known about him for, decades now. But like, it was going to start out slow, we know that. But once now they have all their personnel, I mean, like, Jalen Ramsey, he wasn't even supposed to be playing until about a month from now. So, good on him. Good on him for coming back, shutting. He played really well against Adams whenever he was on him. Came up with the pick against him and a game-saving pick. So that's good. I think the Dolphins defense needs to do this from now on if they want to, keep their standings at
Yeah.
least in the NFC
And
East.
also Tyreek Hill left the game briefly and then came back. I mean, like I said, like this week of football kind of sucked with all of
Mm-hmm.
the injuries going on.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it wasn't too bad. I mean, like, he came back, sure, but like, it's not anything serious. I don't think he should be okay.
Yeah.
So, speaking of
Right.
okay, let's talk about Bears Lions.
Ooh, that was a
Bears
good
choked
one.
that what
See,
12-point
the
lead in
Bears
the
may have
fourth
lost the
quarter.
game successfully in the last 3 minutes by blowing 17 points, but they are winning the tanky game. So the
Yeah,
Bears are still winning.
I think so.
Fair. And the
Justin
Lions
Fields,
are
he
winning
played.
too.
He didn't play bad. He didn't play bad, but he wasn't. He didn't play like I mean, like in those situations, right? You're down three. Your defense is kind of reeling. You have a chance to go up and tie the game. That's when you have to show up. And I don't know if it's offensive line that that allowed Aiden Hutchinson to get that strip sack safety, but that's the moments when you have to shine. And man, if you have a top 5 pick and you're Chicago, you kind of have to choose a quarterback. Speaking of quarterback, Jared Goff played really, really, really well. I won't say really, really, really bad, but he played bad, but
He was
also
sluggish.
just
He was sluggish.
he was very not sluggish. He was very sluggish. 3 picks, but he also did some good things in that final quarter. Got him back. Had a touchdown pass. Set up the game-winning touchdown run. So
and
it's
like we
kind of
said,
it's a
like,
love-hate. It's a love-hate relationship.
and
He
even
didn't hit
though
them the best, but he didn't lose them the game either,
and
which he
even though
probably
this is
should
the
have.
Bears, like, even though it's the Bears, like, this still shows, like, I don't know, the Lions still have that factor because, like, no matter how much crap you've taken throughout the game, football is all about demonstrating your resiliency and your ability to fight back and win the
Yeah,
game. The
yeah.
Lions, for how garbage they played pretty much throughout the entire game, they showed fight, they showed intensity,
Yeah.
they showed passion,
And
they showed
this is a
drive.
team that I think is probably going to win the NFC North. They have the Packers at home in 2 days' time. I think they'll win that matchup. Have their first winning season in a few years. Good on them. Good on them. But
Dan Campbell, coach of the year.
I think so. Yeah, nobody
No,
else.
no, he
Deserves it more.
better win it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I argued last year Dan Campbell should have won Coach of the Year, even though the
Mhm.
Lions were just short of making the playoffs. In my
Yeah.
mind, Dan Campbell still deserved it last
Mhm.
year, but he'll definitely win it this year. If he
Speaking of
doesn't,
just
I don't
missing
know
the
what I'll do.
playoff, yeah. Speaking of just missing the playoff, let's go to Seahawks Rams. I think the refs were a big factor in this game. They had that big DPI called on, I think it was Devin Witherspoon. But the Seahawks offense, sure, Geno Smith left, and then Drew Lock got benched, so Geno had to come back. But they, they got swept by the Rams, which have been predicted to be in the gutter this year. So I don't know if that's more, on the Rams or more on the Seahawks, but I'll give some credit to Matthew
Um,
Stafford. He played without Cooper Kupp for a while. He somehow got his team to a win. Like the kicker saying, we all know that. So the Seahawks kind of have to finish these close games if they want to, be
well,
seen as a contender.
well, we talked about last week how the Seahawks were going to have a rough 5 weeks going to close out to the season. So far, it's
And they
not off to
have,
a great start.
but and the problem is they have, a certain team called the San Francisco 49ers at home. Sure, it's at
Thanksgiving
home,
night. It's
but
gonna be a good
it's
one.
still the 49ers who have swept them the past, year or two. So speaking of sweep, let's go to Titans. Let's go to Titans. Let's go to Giants Commanders. Actually, I don't
Uh,
think anybody expected this at all.
Me neither. I
Okay,
didn't.
credit to
I didn't even know the Giants could score points.
yeah, a credit to
Who
Tommy
knew Tommy
DeVito.
DeVito was that good? Like, it looks great. And now
Well,
the draft pick
the
went out the
the
window.
He didn't play like
the
good.
Goodfellas
Yeah,
man
I think there's a
certainly
difference
made his mark
between
today.
I think there's a difference between playing good ball and then playing ball to win. And I think Tommy DeVito did a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah,
He
definitely.
he had some great throws to
He
Saquon
did.
especially. That's a
I
throw you
know.
don't see a lot
Saquon
of
Barkley is a
quarterbacks make.
receiver.
Yes,
He certainly didn't look that bad. Like,
he didn't look that bad
Not
against
at
the
all. He's very accurate too.
yeah.
And three
Um,
touchdowns.
I think Ron Rivera, his job is probably going to be
Yeah. Yeah.
gone after this
he's
year.
gone. And Eric
Um,
Bieniemy will be promoted to head coach.
I think we also have to give some credit to Wing Martindale. He came up with a lot of,
Mm.
he's one of the only, players who has played the Commanders successfully this year on offense. Isaiah Simmons, you're, a big under the radar trade,
Hmm.
came with
Yeah,
the
he was traded for
50-yard
what,
pick
like a
six.
sixth or a
Good
seventh?
on him. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
A seventh, yeah.
Seventh, right?
Good on
Yeah.
him.
Yeah,
Um,
essentially traded for nothing.
yeah.
And so far,
Yeah.
he's been showing his worth.
Yeah.
I
I've always
agree.
liked him. Very versatile offensive
Yeah.
player. He's trying to show it, so it's
Well,
great.
he's
But
not Micah Parsons versatile, but he's
no, I mean
something.
like he could
No,
play like different positions and stuff
speaking of
like
Michael
that.
Parsons, let's go to Cowboys Panthers. Cowboys,
Mm.
come out with a good 23-point win on the road against probably the league's worst team. But Bryce Young, man, he's suffering. I don't know why, if it's a result of his offensive line, his play, or his wide
Yeah.
receivers play, but it's suffering. It's
Yeah.
it's not good. He did have a big pick six
Kind of
on
makes you wonder what
Sunday.
would have happened if the Panthers drafted CJ Stroud.
I don't think it would have been much of a difference, but with the way Stroud's been playing, we're gonna have to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
this, some of it is on Bryce, admittedly, like the pick six, you have to put that ball out in front of them because you can put it behind them and expect, what's been the league's best ball hawk this year, not to catch it on defense. So, that
Yeah,
was on him.
Bland has been showing up very well for the Cowboys. Like,
Yes.
he could make a sneaky run at defensive player of the year. He
I think
could.
so too. If he has, I mean, he's already tied the season pick six record. I think he'll get one maybe or two before the season ends,
I mean,
given their schedule.
the only reason why I don't think he has a chance is because one, Miles Garrett is balling, and two, there's a different Dallas Cowboys defender who's also balling, Micah Parsons.
Yes, Micah Parsons had 2.5 sacks on Sunday, despite being kind of sick. I'll give him some credit. But this, I think Frank Reich, he should definitely be considered for the hot seat. I mean, like, I didn't know I mean, like, there's a reason why he's in Carolina and not in Indy because of his bad start last year on offense. So, you know, I'm sure they won't do it. I mean, like, he's just, this isn't, an elite, personnel group yet on any side of the ball. So, give him some time. I mean, like, he's there for a reason. I think he can build this team. It might not be, in 1 or 2 years,
It's the
but
growing pains.
yes, you're gonna have to go through some pains. Obviously that losing that draft pick isn't gonna help at all either. So speaking of
Yep.
draft picks, speaking of a battle over draft picks, let's go to the Cardinals and the Texans. I mean, like we all know the big Texans trade to the Cardinals at the beginning of the year, but Texans come back, upstage them. CJ Stroud, shaky performance, I'll say. He had a great first half performance though.
Oh,
Yeah.
the pass to
Yards. He
Tank
was,
Dell was
I mean, like he was
What a
on pace
stunner.
to,
What a stunner.
yeah, he was on pace to pass for over 500 yards. So good on him, but good on this Cardinals defense. They kind of kept the team in the game. Um, some bad calls from the Cardinals offense in that last drive, I thought. I mean, like they didn't adjust to the all-out blitz.
Yeah.
The
I thought most of the bad offensive playing calls would have vanished when Cliff Kingsbury was sent off seas, but
Mhm.
apparently not.
Yeah, and I mean, like they didn't adjust to an all-out blitz twice, and you're kind of supposed to adjust to those kind of situations. But you know, I think the Cardinals, yeah, they're gonna end up with the top five pick. They should probably go for for Marvin Harrison Jr. or just trade down.
No, we are going for Marvin Harrison Jr. We are.
I hope so. So speaking of Marvin Harrison Jr., um, or probably the lack thereof of offensive playmakers, let's talk about the Jets and the Bills.
uh,
Teams that kind of like the Bills. They came out. They wanted to prove that they're still. I mean, like they may
we're
not make the
still in
playoffs
it.
like that, but they're still prove that they're in the hunt from the first. Like they're hitting before the first snap. I mean, like a forced fumble on the
Yeah,
opening kickoff.
yeah. This
They
was
scored.
very different compared to the week one game. Very
Yeah,
And
different.
very
like this is how
different.
you should start a game. Credit Buffalo's defense. I mean, like sure it's the Jets offense, but their defense did some pretty good things, I thought.
And
Bills
speaking of the
offense,
Jets offense,
yeah,
Zach
you
Wilson
know,
may have played his last ever snap.
yeah.
Maybe.
I think they probably won't just because I agree with Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of unfair to blame Zach Wilson, but
No,
at the
it's
same
not.
time though, and like he
I
wasn't
don't
even
think.
supposed to be playing this much. I think we can all agree. I mean, like the plan was for Aaron Rodgers to
Well,
play this.
Yeah, I agree with
I don't
you.
see much of a change anyways. He hasn't been playing that much. Look at him. Like you're better off putting in a damn traffic cone at the quarterback.
Yeah,
At
we
least
have
the
benched
traffic
him.
cone will throw
They're gonna go
interceptions.
with the guy who has more career interceptions than touchdowns at almost every level. That's a big
No,
question mark to
no.
me.
Honestly, the Jets would be better off starting Mekhi Becton, their offensive tackle at quarterback.
Speaking
I
of
seriously think so.
speaking of injuries, yes, he has. I think it was a knee injury for him.
No,
A lot of injuries.
he's been cursed with knee injuries throughout his
Yeah.
career. It's unfortunate
Like,
because he has a lot of talent and a lot of raw strength, but he's
mhm,
been cursed with knee injuries.
yeah. I don't know, like they did say it wasn't too bad, so I think he'll be. I think he might be okay. He might play in 1 or 2 weeks, but don't expect Zach Wilson to be playing in 1 or 2 weeks unless the Jets decide that neither of these guys are good enough, and we have to have him in. I mean, like I think this is Nathaniel Hackett's problem, though. We all expected Aaron Rodgers to be playing at this time of year,
Well,
so
I mean, but you could see in the way that the Jets are trying to call plays. Like Nathaniel Hackett is clearly not drawing up plays for Aaron
yeah,
Rodgers to simulate for Zach Wilson. Like he's
yeah.
clearly calling more of a short game to like at least so called play to Zach Wilson's strengths. The problem is Zach Wilson has zero strengths aside
Yeah.
from turning the ball over. Um, that's really his only strength.
hmm Speaking of
Yeah,
turning
it's
it
funny. Yeah.
over, let's go to Titans Jaguars. The Titans continue to struggle on the road this year, unfortunately. Um, Jaguars though hell of a performance. Calvin Ridley, 33 fantasy points. and 2 touchdowns, over 120 total yards. Good on him. Pretty good on him.
Trevor Lawrence balled out.
Yeah, he did ball out. Sure, it's the Titans,
Yeah.
but
Hey,
but
this makes up for the Jaguars offense not showing up last. Well, then again, it was the San Francisco defense. So
yeah, and we'll talk about them right after this.
Fair.
But yeah, uh, Will Levis, they have to get another receiver. If that's Marvin Harrison Jr., if that's Malik
no,
Neighbors, uh, or if
no,
it's
we're getting Marvin Harrison Jr. Book it.
well, okay, well, if it's like say Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze, they need another receiver on this offense because
Uh,
Traylon Burks can't, is seemingly
I
injured.
I know. I think AJ Brown would make a really good trade candidate for the Titans.
Interesting. I think
Send
so
him
too.
back immediately. Do it like right now.
I don't know. I have a feeling AJ Brown would look pretty good in the Titans uniform. What do you think, Arnav?
Yeah, it's not like we've seen him before,
He
but I
would
mean,
look
I think
better.
he's pretty good.
Yes, we all know he would look better in a Patriots uniform.
Oh,
So
what could have been?
okay, so speaking of uniform, let's go to Chargers Packers.
But first
Packers.
thing I need to say. First thing I need to say. If I had $1 for every time the Chargers invented a new way to lose, I'd have enough money to buy SoFi Stadium.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about this game. Obviously the Chargers, kind of hamstrung on offense all day by drops and fumbles and
Yeah,
turnovers. You know, this is damning on not just Quentin Johnston, but
Quentin
also
Johnston,
Tommy
man.
Telesco, their general manager as
Uh,
well. Like he drafted Quentin
uh,
Johnston.
did you guys see Brandon Staley get pissed off in the press conference where he's like, "I'm going to be still calling defensive players, even though he has completely no idea what to do."
Yeah. I think it's past time that, Staley and Telesco were fired. Telesco's been there for 10 years, and, this Chargers team has what, one playoff win over that time span? You can't have this with a roster like that. So hopefully, Staley and Telesco are fired. Like Staley deserves his job can for, allowing Jordan Love to have
No,
what, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns.
he should have been fired in his rookie year, and I've been
Yeah,
saying
I
that
think
for
we've
years.
covered that. We've covered that almost every week on this,
Pretty
podcast.
much.
Which, tells you how bad of a coach he is. But
Hmm.
also Jordan Love and the young playmakers. Sure it's the Chargers defense, but they didn't do a bad job.
Uh,
I mean, this is
and even when Aaron Jones was out of the game for a little bit, like Jordan Love still did pretty good. Like he held his
they're
own.
pretty good. But like he might not be the future, just yet, but he's definitely growing into there. And the only way he can do that is if his receivers grow with him as well. I'll say that.
Right.
So speaking of throwing, let's go to Vikings and Broncos. The legend of Josh Dobbs. Sure it took a hit, but he seems he played pretty decent. I mean, like sure he didn't. I didn't think he had a turnover. But he's
He
played.
didn't play that bad.
He didn't play that bad. I mean, like especially against this Denver defense, which has been playing somehow like the Legion of Boom these past
Well,
few weeks.
minus Kareem Jackson imitating
Yeah.
Vontez perfect.
Yeah, Kareem Jackson, he's suspended for 4 games
Oh
for
my God.
good reason. He's an Alabama alum. I'm really surprised that he's playing like this, but he did deserve this one. Credit Russell Wilson, game-winning drive. Cortland Sutton, credit him as well.
Hmm.
For he's turning back into his 2019 form, and that's a good.
Finally unlocking his potential.
Mm-hmm.
And
Correct.
a fun
And the
fact about the
Vikings defense,
Broncos.
let's talk about them. The Vikings defense also has been playing pretty good ball. I mean, like they kind of, I think they dropped. They almost forced a turnover on Sunday, but this is a team that they if this defense and this offensive can just keep up, they'll make a playoff. They might be one and done, but
Right.
they can make it for sure.
Yeah.
And Justin Jefferson's close to coming back soon. But
Yes.
fun fact: the Denver Broncos currently hold the longest winning streak in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like the fact that they're at this record 6-5 without Justin Jefferson for like
And
five
Kirk
games
Cousins.
is and Kirk Cousins incredible. I mean, like Kevin O'Connell, he should be on the short list for Coach of the Year. I mean, like I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna take it from Dan Campbell, but he deserves to be up there as well. So
Yeah,
speaking of
yeah.
Coach of the Year, let's talk about Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. Going into
Oh
Arrowhead
boy.
defeating the Chiefs.
Okay.
This was one I did
Wait,
not.
wait, wait, wait. We forgot to talk about Bucks 49ers.
Oh yeah. So yeah, let's talk about Bucks 49ers. 49ers defense, they lost Talanoa Hufanga for the year. That's a big injury, but
Mm.
I think they're in good hands. Steve Wilkes, he's a secondary coach. He'll have this stuff figured out. Great game by Brock Purdy, perfect
Oh
passer,
yeah. Big
300
green.
yards passing.
He played well.
He played
Very
great.
well.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he played great. I mean, like, with all the talk of, him in the past 3, 4 weeks that he's had, he played the lead he played the lead on Sunday. Sure it's the Bucks defense, but he played good. I mean, Baker Mayfield didn't play too bad. And like I think he had two turnovers, but his receivers didn't help him much. A lot of drops. That seems to also be a theme, for almost every team this year, just drops. So speaking of drops, I
Oh
want
God,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
this. Yeah, let's talk about
I
Eagles
love
and
these
Chiefs.
transitions,
That's a
by the
good
way.
segue. That
Yeah,
was a good
very
segue.
good.
Yeah. I did not expect this. I had Chiefs, winning this
Me,
game
me
by a
too.
certain number of points that would
Oh,
have
what a shocker!
covered a certain, covered a certain spread.
Yeah,
This was an interesting game that, the Chiefs probably shouldn't have lost. I mean, like, if you're Mahomes, you simply don't have a 10-point lead and lose.
yeah, never happened
You're
before.
supposed to
No,
have a
no,
10-point deficit and win.
he's done that quite a bit throughout his career. Most
Yeah.
notably in the AFC Championship against the Bengals 2 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
They had a
that's right.
21-3 lead, if you remember.
Yeah. So I mean, like, credit Jalen Hurts, man. He's done some unbelievable things these past 2 years.
Yeah,
And
credit
like,
Jalen Hurts, Arnav.
yeah, he,
He had
and like,
like I don't get why people are putting him in the MVP conversation. That's too
like
much.
you have
He
to
had
you
No,
have to see
150
no,
you have to
okay,
yards
see
all right.
today.
and like his
And a
first half
Honestly, I
pick.
agree with that part. I
his
agree
first
with
half
that.
performance was very forgettable. He had that one huge turnover and he was sacked 5 to 6 times, which
Hmm.
is actually astonishing given how good Philly's O line
I
has
know,
been
that's
for
crazy.
years.
Yeah, they were all
I,
over.
I was
Credit
not
Steve,
expecting
yeah.
that.
I think you have to credit Steve Spagnuolo and him trying
Yeah,
to find great matchups to win. Trent McDuffie, he should be in consideration for an all pro team or two. But it was the second half that's interesting. Obviously the Chiefs, in the Super Bowl, they showed up, the Eagles didn't.
and it was the
Um,
exact
Well,
opposite this year.
yeah.
Very
no,
interesting.
no, I was going to say that in the Super Bowl, the Eagles were leading by 10 points, if I
Yep,
remember correctly,
exactly
at
10 at
at
the
the
half,
half,
and then this year
and
the
and
Chiefs
now
were.
this time the Chiefs were leading by 10, and
Hmm.
also if you notice, the team that's wearing the home jersey in both of these matchups lost.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's interesting too, because well,
I mean, I'm not a
Andy Reid,
conspiracy
okay,
theory.
well, we have to
Actually,
look
no, I
at the
am.
stats to see how improbable this was. Andy Reid was like 27-4 before yesterday's game after
After
bye
buys,
weeks.
right? Yeah.
No,
Mahomes was five and
Andy Reid
0.
is ridiculous,
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous
Yeah.
on like
Mahomes is
whether
also
it's
5 and
even
0,
pre-bye
so
week or post.
yeah. Yeah. Credit Jalen Hurts, man. He played elite. I mean, like his receiver, despite AJ Brown having what 1.8 or 2 fantasy points the entire week,
Yeah.
And
for this week.
Many played good though.
special shout out to Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Yeah. So yeah,
Man, I
speaking
can't
of
believe
drops,
it. That was
like,
such a
yeah,
catchable ball. I
this
mean,
is
like,
the
how do you
yeah.
like?
So speaking
Oh
of
my
drops,
God.
this is the second game this year that the Chiefs drops have cost them a game. And
Yeah, the Lions way back in
week
week one
one and
too.
then
Yeah.
this,
Mhm.
I don't know if it was a weather problem
It could
or if
have been because it was
No,
raining, to be fair, but I mean, like,
notice how when the Chiefs are like playing legitimate teams, all of a sudden they just falter.
yeah.
Detroit,
Mhm.
Philadelphia. It's almost like they're a little
it's,
bit
Yeah.
overrated now.
I think, I mean, like, this is, the Chiefs, they're not the Chiefs offense that we've seen these past few years, but
yeah,
I think they'll fix it. I mean, like, I mean, like, it's a little bit more than halfway. You obviously want to fix it, but they'll heat up these next few weeks, I'm pretty sure. I'm really
yeah.
confident that
Schedule
they
gets
will.
easier,
I
but
mean, like,
I mean,
like
yeah,
Well,
they don't seem to be able to hit the deep ball. So what are they going to do? Andy Reid's going to scheme people open over the middle, find ways to
hmm
get out the ball out of Mahomes' hands
no,
really quick. Because
Andy Reid's a very creative playmaker, so I wouldn't be too worried. But I
I mean,
mean,
like,
like the
honestly,
Chiefs' offense has
there's
the
two
Chiefs'
big problems.
offense.
Yeah, there's two
No,
big
no, I'm saying
problems with Kansas City's offense. The
they've
first
been
one
very
is,
lifeless outside of the Bears game.
okay,
Very
uh,
lifeless.
yeah. So I'll tell you the problems with Kansas City's offense. First, the receivers dropping, dropping or having turnovers. We saw Kelsey had a fumble in the
crazy.
red zone. We saw, Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Justin Watson drop,
Yeah,
make big drops. But also, we also have to look at the tackles for Kansas City that they brought in, Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor.
Well,
They haven't had good years.
Donovan Smith is a holding penalty machine waiting to happen.
Yeah,
We
they
we've
haven't
seen
had
that
good
we've seen
use
that
of.
when he
I
was
mean,
with
like
Tampa Bay for the past couple of years.
the only
He's a
reason they're
holding
on
machine
I
waiting to
mean, like
happen.
I'll say the only reason they're on the team right now is because I mean, like I don't think there's anybody better right now other than them on the team. But you have to clean this stuff up if you're gonna
mm,
be in the playoffs. I mean, like
yeah,
Philly, they only got what 1 or 2 sacks. Other teams are gonna find ways to exploit that. I mean, like for all of Andy Reid's genius, you know, this might, his tackles might be their undoing. I mean, their interior is the best in the league. Actually, their interior is the best in the league, just like a period. But their exterior offensive line, you have to figure that out, and you have to figure that out yesterday.
I mean, their interior is already really damn good because of
Yeah.
some guy named Joe Tooney. We've seen him for years.
Yes. And
We've been spoiled by how great he is.
if you're the Chiefs, you have to start going 12, 13 personnel. And like they did a pretty good job in the second half, but they couldn't score in the second half. So
Right.
I
Hey,
think
no complaints there.
yeah. But let's also give credit the Chiefs defense in the first half. They just found ways to
Outstanding.
get after Jalen Hurts. Cause turnovers, wreak havoc. Good on them.
And
Also,
credit to them for not showing up in the second half.
yeah. Let's talk about the Eagles offense though, especially Brian Johnson. I mean, like first half, no adjustments. I mean, like we saw a lot of screens. I don't know if that's the weather, causing it or just the Chiefs pressure, but I mean, like the Eagles, they're just finding ways to win. And I don't think you can really say anything against that right now.
I'm still a little bit
Mhm.
confused on how they didn't beat the Jets, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm.
Every team
Yeah,
has those dud games.
exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's fair. So, guess that's about gonna do it with the NFL recap. It's been another episode of Sports Vibe, and we'll see you next time.